Everybody, welcome back to another episode of Shifty's 49ers Talk. In today's video, we are going to talk about some of the most impressive players so far in training camp for the San Francisco 49ers. We're going to cover a couple of guys on the offensive side of the ball, and of course, a couple of players on the defensive side of the ball as well. Let's not waste any time. Let's jump right in. The first guy who I absolutely have to talk about is wide receiver Brandon Aiyuk. He has been the absolute star of training camp, and it's really no surprise. Towards the end of last season, he was really coming on strong. In his rookie year in 2020, he showed some flashes, but so far, even before training camp, we saw all offseason long, he was working with Trey, doing their own private workouts, OTAs, minicamp, really developing that chemistry, that rapport, and it's paying off so far, what we're seeing in training camp. Seemingly every day there's a new highlight reel with Trey Lance hitting Brandon Aiyuk, and not only are the throws fantastic from Trey Lance, but the catches too, to really, high point the catches, with really good, excellent coverage by the 49ers defensive backs. It's really impressive to see what Brandon Aiyuk has done so far, and honestly, I would not be surprised if Aiyuk actually ends up with the most receiving yards of any 49er this year. We know defenses will focus on Kittle and Debo, but Aiyuk is the guy who really will get those one-on-one matchups, and so far he's showing like he can really step up to the challenge. Aiyuk, the most impressive guy in training camp so far on the offense. The next guy I have to give a shout out to is offensive lineman Spencer Burford, the 4th round pick out of University Texas San Antonio. Who would have thought that he would have essentially entrenched himself as the starting right guard this early? I think, before training camp began, I would have thought Daniel Brunskill at right guard, Jake Brendel at center, but it really seems like Spencer Burford he started at every single practice so far in training camp at right guard with the first team offense. And we're going to talk a little bit later about really how the offensive line is shaping up, but essentially I think here's how it's going to look. Trent Williams at left tackle, Aaron Banks left guard, Brunskill center, Burford right guard, McGlinchey right tackle. So that way you have guys like Banks and Burford who they actually haven't started any NFL games yet, but they're going to have veterans on either side of them. Veterans who've been, in the biggest situations against the best players in the NFL. So they'll have that, veteran leadership right beside them and be able to, overcome any obstacles, of course. So, overall, Burford, really impressive. And let's also give a bit of a shout out to Aaron Banks too, simply because we haven't heard his name too much, and typically for an offensive lineman, that is a good thing. At the running back position, this is very tightly contested. Overall, I think, and I really do have to give a couple of shout outs here, but I think Trey Sermon, before training camp, I was actually pretty low on Trey Sermon. I really didn't even have him making our initial 53-man roster, but look, he's performed really well by all accounts. He's definitely improved himself with regards to his receiving ability, his athletic ability, and something which I just saw today in his interview with the media is that he really feels a lot more comfortable in the 49ers offense right now, which allows him to be much more decisive. Look, if you're going to excel in the Kyle Shanahan offense as a running back, you just have to make your cut and go. You can't second guess yourself. If you're going to pick up those positive yards, you have to trust the blocking scheme ahead of you, trust that there's going to be a space, and just go for it. And it seems like he's really getting to that point. So it's really positive, and it's really great to see a guy like Trey Sermon, who was a 3rd round pick last year, that he's stepped up his game and he's risen to the challenge. So awesome to see Trey Sermon really step up. Also undrafted rookie free agent Jordan Mason, he's made a number of big plays. People are saying that he's looking better than this year's 3rd round pick in TDP. So TDP, I think he somewhat has his spot entrenched on the team, simply being a 3rd round pick, but Jordan Mason is really going to be pushing him for a spot on the roster too. So overall, I think the offense initially was struggling in training camp, and that's to be expected. You're going to see that all across the NFL, but Trey Lance is really starting to find his groove. Now Debo's back, and now we're seeing consistently more Trent Williams at left tackle, McGlinchey at right tackle, so the protection's getting there. but also the interior of the offensive line. Have we settled it? Who the starters will be? As these guys get more reps together, they'll be able to build that chemistry, anticipate what they're going to do, and also be able to handle the different blitzes and whatnot that a D'Amico Ryan's defense does throw at them every day in practice. Overall, really encouraged by the progress of the offense so far. Can't wait to see the Lance to Debo connection as well. That's going to be great. Let's move on to the defensive side of the ball, and we have to start off with a guy who's looking like he should be an all-pro, potential defensive MVP, and that is, of course, Nick Bosa. Physically, he looks fantastic, in great shape, and he's just been dominating practices day in, day out. And something that really stuck with me, and a couple of days ago, D'Amico Ryan said, is that this year he's really just honing his craft and just looking to add those little extra details and, things to his game. Whereas last year he was returning from an injury. The year before, I think he was hurt for most of training camp. And then the year before that, a rookie also missed a bunch of time as well. So overall, Nick Bosa primed for a massive year. Couldn't be more excited. But also, we do have to talk about free agent signing Charvarius Ward. By all accounts, some people say that he has been the MVP of training camp so far, locking down receivers, and the great thing is that, having a guy like that to compete with Aiyuk, to compete with Debo, just really makes them have to elevate their game. Among the other receivers too, Jawan Jennings, Ray, and all those guys, when you have a cornerback the level of Charvarius Ward and how he's playing in this scheme, it really just helps the entire team. Of course, there's the very cliche saying that we hear all the time now is iron sharpens iron, and it's true. But Charvarius Ward looking like a fantastic pickup for the 49ers. Couple of other guys that we are going to mention in this video too. Talanoa Hufanga. It looks like they're really carving out a specific role for him in terms of kind of playing maybe not at the line of scrimmage, but a little bit maybe more closer to the box, covering tight ends, playing that robber position where you're looking to use your athleticism and smarts and things like that to really make some big plays for the defense. And he's made a number of them. I saw a couple of reports with great, coverage on George Kittle, having interceptions of Trey Lance. So really have to be, happy about the progress and the development of a guy like Hufanga. I know for me, I was a little bit concerned about the safety position with Tart, the longtime starter at strong safety. Seems like Hufanga's really stepping up to that role too. And then we have very solid depth in George Odom, and Tarvarius Moore is also making some good plays too for the secondary. If we talk about the linebackers, we just know the usual guys. Fred Warner, got into a bit of a scuffle with Brandon Aiyuk yesterday, but overall, these linebackers are fantastic, really, really impressive. So I think the whole thing is like just the defense. The defense is just looking, if it's not top 5, assuming that we can stay reasonably healthy, then I would be absolutely stunned. There are a couple of guys who've really, though, been impressing on the defensive line that I have to talk about. Let's talk about rookie Drake Jackson, the second-round pick out of USC. Overall, he's looking like a perfect fit in this defense, really, thriving so far under the coaching of Chris Kaserik, which a lot of players do. Now, here's something which I really like is that he's been moving up the depth chart seemingly, even getting some reps opposite Nick Bosa with the first-team defense and actually performing pretty well. Overall, this is a guy who, in my opinion, was really one of the only guys on the USC defense, USC team that definitely underperformed, especially defensively. But also, I wasn't crazy about the way that USC was using him. I think in a system like this, it's just ideal for what he can bring to the table in terms of his ability to, his bend, his athleticism, and just, his ability to really hone his skills to be an effective edge rusher in this defense. So I think he's someone who should be as good as, if not better, than a guy like Samson Ebukam, who I'm also a really big fan of. Lastly on this list, I do have to talk about, one of my favorite players quickly becoming that, guy is that it's Charles Omenihu on the defensive line. Something I really like about his game, which he's really, worked on obviously, is his versatility. So it looks like, the Niners have had him out there on the interior of the defensive line, on the outside as well, and he's doing really, really well there. And that's something that's just so important for a defense like this, is just having depth. I mean, it's important for every defense, but a defense like this where we really rely on those steady rotations, but also we know, like, you know, guys get hurt throughout the year, guys are going to miss some time, so having that ability to come in, play multiple positions, that's really, really valuable. And it's so far he has been impressing on the inside and outside, so really excited to see what Charles Omenihu can do this year. Overall, guys, I'm going to leave it there for the video. I just wanted to give a shout out to the guys who it appears to me are really, really impressing in training camp. And let's keep an eye on those players as those preseason games are coming up. You know, sooner or later, we're going to have some games. I know the Green Bay game, I believe, is on the 12th. So in about a week and a half or so. So a couple of guys, keep an eye on them during those games. And of course, as practices continue, let's see how the team really comes together. Couldn't be more excited for the team this year. You know, we have a defense that's looking like it should be, you know, top 5, an offense that's going to be a lot more explosive, you know, a lot more big plays, but also, you know, a lot of different wrinkles we can add in, you know, with Trey Lance and his ability to move the ball with his legs, but also his arm. So really excited to see how the team is coming together. But yeah, just want to leave it there and leave your thoughts and maybe some players who I didn't mention in this video who you feel deserve some shout outs for their performance so far in training camp. But at this moment, guys, you know I'm going to say 2 things. The butt counts, and I'm going to catch y'all on the flip side.